Have you ever wondered what the best and worst Skaven troops are? Well, wonder no more. My name is Mekrat, and today I'm going over every single Skaven troop, match play legal, in a tier list. And we'll start off strong with the endless spells. So the first endless spell is the Bell of Doom, and that is going to go in build around me tier. It's really strong. Basically what it does is it gives every Skaven infantry unit wholly within 13 inches of it -1 to be wounded. That is very good for being a free endless spell. Super strong. Definitely in build around me tier. It's the reason you're taking our spell lore, basically. Up next is the Warp Lightning Vortex and How Heroes Fall. This spell is now bad tier. It basically, it just doesn't do anything anymore. It doesn't do any mortal wounds the turn it comes down. It doesn't control the board space. It doesn't really do anything to your opponent. There's no, their opponent doesn't have to counterplay or play around it at all. It just doesn't do anything. So, bad tier. And then luckily, the Vermintide Endless Spell is good. Good inclusion. I rate this Endless Spell pretty highly. It's very tanky. It's hard to kill. Beyond banishing it, your opponent's probably going to struggle to remove it off the board. It has a lot of health. It heals every turn. So, overall, pretty solid inclusion. Getting into the troops here, the first one on the list is Thanquol on Bone Ripper, and he's definitely in build around me tier, I think. So he's 360 points, if memory serves. He's a double caster with +1, and he does decent melee damage. He does a little bit of shooting damage. His War Scroll spell stops commands at 18-inch range and is also a 6-up Horde Breaker. Very good spell. He unleashes spell well. He's Master Clan, so he has, good regiment options. He does a lot for his points value. Now, you need to play him specifically. You need to play him at every phase of the game in order to really get his points worth. But he's definitely very strong, and I would put him in build around me tier. Up next are stormfiends, and they are also in build around me tier. They're super strong. Basically, what stormfiends do is they deep strike independently of our nahals in any phase, your own movement phase or your opponent's movement phase, anywhere on the board more than 9 inches away. So what you do, you deep strike them on your opponent's turn, then you throw a little bit of Moulder buff on them, move them up, and charge and kill something in your turn. They're great at getting battle tactics. They're great skirmish melee units. You can reinforce them to make a super anvil that'll kill anything it touches. They're just a great do-it-all unit. Up next is the Warlock Bombarder. And he's going to be our first meme tier. He's fun, but he's not very good. Basically, he's just a foot hero that doesn't do anything, that has a rocket launcher. And the rocket launcher does quite a bit of damage if it hits. It's 2 attacks that hit on 4s, so your mileage may vary. But overall, he's a lot of fun. And that's why he's going in meme tier. Up next is the Vermin Deceiver, and this guy is definitely also in build around me tier. He's easily the best Vermin Lord. His rampage is one of the best monstrous rampages in a game. He's super hard to pin down. You give him Scurry Away, and he's got a 3-up and then a 4-up chance to get out of combat. He's a scalpel. He's got Rend 3 with Crit Mortal. He does great single target damage, not the best damage to an anvil, but you're not putting him into an anvil. You're using him as a razor, as a scalpel. And he does that job very well. He's a little expensive at 410, and he lacks durability, but what he loses in durability, or what he lacks in durability, rather, he makes up for in playmaking and tricks. So, definitely build around me tier. Keeping on the topic of Eshin, we'll go over the Deathmaster, and he is definitely also in meme tier. He can kind of be a funny anvil because of his ability where he can only be hit successfully on 5s and 6s, but beyond that, he doesn't do much damage. He's not a wizard or a priest. He doesn't give he gives run and charge to Eshin units, which is good if you had any super good Eshin units. You only have one, which are the Night Runners, and I'll go over those in a second. But by himself, he just doesn't do enough to be worth his points cost. And the only funny thing he's got going for him is his haha, I can't be killed ability. So, meme tier for sure. Up next is going to be Night Runners, the last Eshin unit in the book, since Gutter Runners are in Legends now. And I would put them in good inclusion tier. So basically what Night Runners do is they shoot, and they're fast, and they're fragile. They don't do enough damage to be considered a glass cannon. They're more like a skirmish shooting unit. They have 2 shots each on 4s and 4s with crit auto. They have crit mortal and melee, and they have a pre-game move. So it makes them very fast. It makes them able to sprint off the line and get some shooting done. It makes them able to run around the battlefield, into something that has poor armor. They'll do a decent amount of damage. You can reinforce them if you want, or just run them in as a unit of 10. They can benefit from the Deceiver's auto redeploy 6 ability, or auto redeploy 4 inches ability, which is pretty nice. It's a sweet, neat little combo that makes the Night Runners kind of hard to pin down. Overall, not a bad unit. Up next would be the Grey Seer on foot. I don't think he's in build around me tier because the other Grey Seer options I think have more on their war scroll that makes them compelling, but he's pretty good. I would put him in good inclusion. He has 1 cast, but it's on 3d6 dropping the lowest, which is pretty good. He's good at getting endless spells out. He's good at getting your 1 spell that you need to out. And he's a cheap foot hero that has good regiment options, so you'll find good use out of him. He's just not build around me tier. Up next, we'll talk about Clan Rats, and they're going to be our first one that is good if points go down tier. I've been running Plague Monks over Clan Rats just because they're 20 points cheaper and because the Pestilence subfaction is amazing. I'll talk about Plague Monks in a minute, but Clan Rats are 160 for 20. It's definitely on the expensive side. You feel that when you run 2 units of Clan Rats, that's 320 points, which is the same cost almost as a unit of Jazals or a Vermin Lord Warbringer. So Clan Rats are very prohibitively expensive. If they go down 20 or 30 points, they'll be amazing, auto-include in every list. But right now, I don't really see a reason to run them when you could just run Plague Monks or Night Runners instead. Up next are Warlock Jazals, and they're in build around me tier for sure. They're probably our best war scroll, or one of our best war scrolls. We'll order this tier a little bit. So they shoot at long range. They do great damage. They are super reliable. They're just, in Skaven, reliability can sometimes be hard to come by, and they're just one of the most reliable war scrolls that we have. They have long range, great damage, very consistent output. They're infantry, so you can respawn them. They, are scryers, so they get good buffs. They just do it all, and they're cheap. So definitely build around me, probably top of build around me. Up next will be the Rattling Gun, and this thing is bad. Just don't play it. It's bad. It's too expensive. It doesn't do enough damage. It's almost the same cost as a unit of Plague Monks. Just don't run it. It's bad. Up next is the Arch Warlock, and he is probably in build around me tier. If you're taking Jazales, you should probably take this guy too. He's a single caster, foot hero, wizard, which already makes him very valuable. Wizards are great, especially this edition with endless spells and good spells. And with covering fire being as strong as it is, the fact that he makes your Jazales ignore the -1 to hit penalty when they cover fire just shoots him up into auto-include tier if you're running Jazales at all, in my opinion. He's so strong, and you will get value out of him the first time you use covering fire with Jazales. You'll understand. So, up next is the Claw Lord, and he's just bad. He has a fight with me ability for Clan Rats, or for Clans Vermin, if I remember correctly, and that's just not great. He doesn't really do anything beyond that. So, bad. And up next is the Doom Wheel. I want this thing to be in meme tier, but it's not. It's bad. It lost everything that made it good. It can't overcharge its shooting anymore. It's not quite as fast. It's lost the artifacts to double its movement. And it lost 3 claw steps ahead and all of our sources of extra piling in to proc those mortal wound triggers more, like extra and extra. Just doesn't do anything anymore. So it's a shame, but it's bad. And up next is the Corruptor. And I would put this thing in... I'm debating between good if points go down and meme tier. I think I'm going to put it in good if points go down for now, because for 2 reasons. If endless spells become less meta prevalent and less strong, then I think priests will see more use. But right now, priests are kind of bad unless you have invocations, because the endless spells are just better, and priests are taking up a valuable hero slot that could be casting an endless spell. So that's already, again, working against him. And then the other thing working against him, in my opinion, is that he's the worst combat Vermin Lord by far. There's 2 Vermin Lord profiles. There's 7 attacks at damage 3, and then there's 8 attacks at damage 2. Screech and Warbringer have the 7 at damage 3, and the Deceiver and the Corruptor have the 8 attacks at damage 2. The Deceiver makes it work because he's fast, mobile, and has rend 3 with crit mortal, but the Corruptor is only rend 2, damage 2 with crit auto. So he's very disappointing in combat. And his rampage looks good on paper, but what you'll realize will happen, you'll charge into 2 units, you'll get 2 ritual points, and then he'll die because he's made of paper. So he's not great. I think I've convinced myself that he's meme tier. He might even be bad. But yeah, he's definitely not great. One who is pretty good, however, is the Vermin Lord Warbringer. He has the good Vermin Lord profile, and he has crit mortal. So, with 7 attacks, you get 1, maybe 2 6s, and that's like 6 mortal wounds, which is pretty significant. His rampage is okay. And I've actually found that his ability to give Verminous units extra all-out attacks is not useless. So, overall, he's not bad at all. I would put him in good inclusion tier. His buddies, the Storm Vermin, they're going to go with the Clan Rats in good if points go down tier. Storm Vermin do tons of damage. They're one of the best damaging war scrolls that we have, but they're just way too expensive and way too fragile for the amount of work that they actually do. So we'll see if their points go down and see if they can be good later, but not right now. Another unit for the good if points go down tier is going to be Scryer Acolytes, the Globadiers. So they do have pretty good damage output, especially when you reinforce them. 10 shots at 10 shots at D3 damage is not bad, but for 130 points for 5, there's no way you're playing these guys. All of your other shooting options are just so much better. Like even Rat Ogres. Rat Ogres are probably in build around me tier. Rat Ogres shooting is better than Globadiers, even in my opinion. Yeah, Rat Ogres are a great unit. They definitely belong in build around me tier. They are your go-to troop of choice if you're playing a Moulder army. They receive great buffs. They do oodles and oodles of damage. They receive good prayers if you're playing with a priest. And just overall, they're a great unit. Good damage. Maybe a little on the expensive side, because they are pretty fragile, but overall, I think they belong in build around me tier. Their best friend, the Master Moulder, is good inclusion. I wouldn't play him unless you're playing Rat Ogres or maybe Stormfiends, but he gives them +2 to charge out of Deep Strike and a bit of healing, and he's a Moulder hero, so he makes their regiment, he can take them in his regiment. So overall, he's pretty good. I rate him decently, so good inclusion tier for sure. Another thing that belongs in good inclusion tier, in my opinion, is the Warp Lightning Cannon. Maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I think it's better than most people think it is. One of them is going to consistently put out about 9 to 10 mortal wounds, I believe, if you overcharge and all-out attack it. And if you take the spell lore that has Life Swarm, or you have extra command points by being underdog, you can afford to spend a command point to rally this thing, to heal it, to keep getting that mortal wound output out of it. And if it puts out, 30-something mortal wounds over the course of the whole game, you're definitely getting its points worth. It has decent range at 20 inches, and it requires a little bit of effort to kill, 8 wounds on a 4-up save. So not a bad artillery piece at all. Let's see. We'll do a more interesting one with the Hell Pit. I think this goes in good if points go down tier. It's got a great war scroll. It's just insanely expensive for what it does. It's 270 points. I probably wouldn't even play it at 220. I think it needs to go down at least 60 points to be playable. It's just so fragile for its points cost. A monster that has 14 wounds on a 5-up save is going to die to almost anything in the game. So even with its cute little, the first time it dies on a 5, it stands back up, you can't rely on that for durability. So it really just belongs in good if points go down tier. Up next is the Doom Flare, and I actually think this thing goes in good inclusion. It's very fast, and it can fight and kill a foot hero or a screen unit, It can score you battle tactics because of how fast it is, and it can be hard to pin down because it's very small and you can abuse its fast movement with 3 claw steps ahead. So overall, I would actually say that it goes in good inclusion. If you want to bring a Scryer weapons team, I would bring this one. Up next in good inclusion tier is the Warlock Engineer. He's okay. If you're running a hero sniping list, he's definitely playable. I think I'm actually going to scooch him down to good if points go down tier. Because he is good, he's just really expensive. He's 150 and the Arch Warlock is 170, and you're just getting so much more value out of the Arch Warlock for 170. I think if the Engineer was maybe 120, he would see a lot of play. He is the choice that you take if you want to hero snipe with jazals, but I think that's a niche archetype, and he's a little bit expensive for being a foot hero that does something really specific. So up next is Lord Screech Vermin King, and he is the king of good if points go down tier. He's way expensive at 430 points, but he's got a very good war scroll. So if he goes down 30 or 40 points, I could definitely see a lot of Skaven lists bringing him. He gives you a lot of interesting buffs, a lot of great tech. He's really slappy. His Monstrous Rampage is pretty good, even though it can only be used against infantry. Overall, I rate him. He's just way too expensive. Up next is the Warpseer, who I think belongs in meme tier. Maybe good if points go down, but I think maybe I'll put him at the top of meme tier. His problem is that he does no damage, and he's got a rampage that wants him to get in combat. He's the worst Vermin Lord in combat by far. He's got 6 attacks that hit on 4s, damage 3, so super, super swingy. And then he's just got a whole bunch of stuff on his War Scroll. He's a double caster, which is good. He's got a War Scroll spell that gives -1 dice to charges, which is also good, but it's got a high casting value, which makes it a little less good. And then he gives +2 movement to 3 claw steps ahead, which is also good, but I'm not sure if it's 340 points good. In my testing, I just have felt like I'd rather have any other Vermin Lord than him, even the Corruptor. So I think I'll put him in meme tier, and I think I'll put Corruptor at the top of meme tier and him here in meme tier. Is he better than Corruptor? He might be better than the Corruptor. I think I'll put, yeah, I think I'm happy with this. And I'm gonna shift these guys to here. I think the Acolytes, I think points will help them, but they're still not amazing. Up next is the Plague Claw, and I think this also belongs in good if points go down tier, maybe about here. It does decent damage and it has long range, but its problem is it's just kind of outshined by our it's outshone by our other shooting units. Jazals you're just going to get better value out of for the same cost, and the Warp Lightning Cannon is more expensive but does infinitely more damage. This thing needs a serious points drop if it wants to see play competitively. So do what you will with that information. Up next is the Warp Fire Thrower. It's better than the Rattling Gun and it's cheaper, so I'm going to put it in meme tier, but it's not good. It's like bottom of meme tier, but it's kind of funny. Up next, we got Plague Monks, and they're like, there's a big old asterisk with this, but they're like top of build around me tier. If the Pestilence subfaction gets FAQ'd so they can't move outside of combat, then this unit goes to the middle of good inclusion because they're better than Clan Rats because they're cheaper. But if the Pestilence subfaction does let you essentially get 3 Murder Lusts at the end of every turn, this unit is broken. Possibly the best unit in our book, because you can summon them out of a gnaw hole and then do your little Pestilence 3-inch move to tie something up. Super, super strong stuff. And then the last 2 things we got are the 2 bells, or the bell and the furnace, rather. The bell is going to go in good if points go down tier. Maybe top of good if points go down tier, or bottom of good inclusion. It is really expensive, but it is pretty good. My pet peeve with this unit is the same as last time, where I wish they would just get rid of the random roll thing and just make it permanently have a -1 to hit aura. Hell, even make it like a 2-up, it's a -1 to hit aura. I just wish that it wasn't a coin flip chance of a -1 to hit aura, and then a slightly smaller coin flip chance of a big AoE damage aura, and then a small chance to do nothing. And then on top of that whole table of garbage that it's got that might give you a -1 to hit aura, it's a double caster with a really mediocre War Scroll spell, and then it gives Skaven units wholly within 6 inches a 6-up ward. 6 inches is a really, really small aura. A lot of units barely even fit in that. Like, you're going to really struggle to fit 40 Clan Rats or 6 Stormfiends in that aura. And because it's only 6, the second that they charge or move, they're out of that aura. So it's only a really mediocre defensive aura. So it's not amazing, but -1 to hit is really powerful in an edition where half the stuff in the game hits on 4s. So just from that alone, I think it does belong in good if points go down tier. And then lastly, we got the Furnace. The Furnace is mediocre at best. I think it belongs in meme tier. It's a really, really, really expensive priest that has a really cute -1 to ward aura. It's just not great. It's pretty mediocre. And then as stand-ins for the 2 new units with the Claw Lord on mount, I'm going to use this one. And that guy belongs in meme tier as well. He's a mounted foot hero that does nothing. So, meme tier. He's not bad because he can kind of fight, and he has a cute objective thingy that can sometimes have use. So he's not completely useless, but he's definitely bottom of meme tier. And then for the Rattling Warp Blaster, I'll use this as a stand-in. I would say the Rattling Warp Blaster is good if points go down, around the same as the Plague Claw. It does more damage than the Plague Claw, but it's really expensive right now. It's like 190. I think it's about as good as a Warp Lightning Cannon in terms of damage output, maybe a little bit better into really bad armor saves, but it has a much higher chance of blowing itself up than the Warp Lightning Cannon, so give and take. It's also slightly more fragile. I believe it's 7 wounds. So, not amazing, but, you know, could be playable if points go down. So yeah, that is the tier list. Went through it kind of quickly, but I'm planning to do a more in-depth Skaven full index review of all the units. I want to go over all the synergies and some example lists and all kinds of stuff like that. But I just wanted to get out a video today while I had some time. So thanks for taking the time to watch it. Feel free to put in the comments whether you agree or disagree with my tier list, and I hope you guys all have a good day.